Well, good morning, everyone. Again, I'm doing this second video to cover something about divisions that we have. I feel like this subject's been run into the ground, and I generally don't bring it up as often as I used to because, what are you going to do? I've come to the terms with the idea that people are going to be divided among various subjects, and no matter what information is provided, no matter how much the evidence shows that things are a different way, there will always be those who are going to believe it's one way because they want to. I guess I could take conspiracies for example. Many conspiracies are true. Many have been, shown that there's something to it. But there are those who believe every single conspiracy they hear. They believe that everyone's out to get them. And that's their choice. That's the way that they want to live. They want to think that everyone's out to get them. And I've been thinking about divisions a lot lately, as far as, is it anything we can ever get past? Is there any way to really reconcile our differences? And if so, what is going to be the root that's going to start that? Going on YouTube and arguing with people that have different views is not going to change anything. If somebody says, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about, and the other person says, oh, you're just not awake yet, these stupid arguments just go on and on. There's no real reconciliation, there's no agreement, people just scoff at each other. But I guess the question is, when we hear people talk about how divisions, how we can all come together and set down our walls and set our divisions aside and come together as one species. I can think of a million ways that could be possible and a million ways that might not be possible. But the only real way I have to see if it's possible is to observe nature. And using nature as a metaphor for humanity is a totally legitimate way for me to understand. In other words, we see groups of animals that get along in communities, small communities. There will be scoffs, there will be arguments, there will always be a dog in a pack that will maybe try to step in and take over alpha position. But generally the pack will scoff and nip at him, but people will be put in their place. But there will always be other dog packs which refuse to be put in their place by this other pack. In other words, we've got various animals that are willing to cope with certain neighbors, let's say. You've got, let's say, hippos that are willing to deal with birds in a certain area that ride on them, and then there's another area where maybe they don't like it so much. In other words, environmental conditions dictate how humans as well as animals will react to their neighbors. If you live in a colder climate, it's a lot likely to be more cutthroat. In a polar region, let's say, there's a lot of death. The polar bears and seals, and there's no vegetation, so it's all just meat eating. And you move down a little south, and there's a lot more plant eating. You move down to the tropics, and there's a wide variety of animals. And what I'm saying is that in different places on the earth, and in different circumstances within animals, there are different ways of dealing with it. And I think humans are not going to be any different than that. Different humans on different parts of the planet are not going to ever agree on the same things. So humanity may have worked in smaller communities, but now that we have a world community, there will always be divisions. So I tried to put these divisions down to start from the big and work down to the small. And I wrote them down over here, so I'm going to kind of read them off as I go. The biggest division is us against nature, or us against God, or us against the devil. That is the ultimate division, the ultimate duality, if you want. And when it's us against nature, that just seems so preposterous, but that's the way that we've behaved as humans. We've tried to make nature cater to our desires rather than us living in harmony with nature, because we believe that we are a dominant species over nature, that our consciousness brought us the ability to beat nature. And that was our first division. We divided ourselves. The next one would be our species against aliens trying to take over, which is kind of along the same lines um, as the devil or anything else. An evil alien species that just wants our planet and our resources. Um, this pits humanity as one species against another, which, since even if there is an enemy, an alien enemy, this isn't going to work because it's not revealing itself to enough people. You know, in other words, I feel like people want something to come together as long as it's coming together against something else. Now that's a very key point you have to remember. People have the strongest bonds when they're fighting against something they don't like. So adversity brings contentment, agreement, whatnot. I don't really know how to put it. Then we have our species against other skin colors. You know, skin color against skin color. We've got whites against blacks, against browns, against yellows. And even though we pretend like that one's kind of going by the wayside, it's not. Racism is never going away. I in my heart, don't feel like it's ever going to go away. On the outside, and some of the hate crimes and whatnot, we may be able to get rid of, but people's judgment according to skin color, I don't think that I think that will take many generations to get away from. But it is possible. Then we're divided on shades of skin color. Even within the community of blacks or whites, there are various degrees of shades of skin color that even within those communities, you know, blacks will make fun of other blacks that have a lighter shade or a darker shade. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just ludicrous. Or like, you know, you're not an authentic Peruvian, you know, or, you know, it becomes a cultural heritage issue. Then we get past that, we have continental division. Then we have even if we have a bunch of different races on one continent, we have us saying, well, Europe's better than the U.S. Oh, no, the U.S. is better than Australia, or and then nationalism kind of takes over. And within those continents, there's the division of nations. And then people can set race aside for a moment because now they're fighting for their nation. It's our nation against theirs, whatever it may be, the Cold War. And the elite have played on this for a long time. They know that people love division, so they keep us in a constant state of perpetual war. So we always have an enemy to be afraid of. So let's just take the nations, break it from the nation down. Say we have a U.S. nation as us against them. Then we have the East Coast, West Coast bullshit, which seems to have started with, you know, a lot of it was with the rappers and whatnot. That's where you hear it the most. But East Coast, West Coast, who cares? But I've never been to the East Coast. There are very different people out there. And if you want to take it a step further, you can go East Coast, West Coast. You can put the East Coast and sorry, I got something in my eye. Take the East Coast and West Coast and put them together, and then it could be the coastal states against the red states. Because if you look at a map of, let's say, whether it be legalization of cannabis or educational performance as far as or creations, inventions, anything, moving forward, trying to be more modern, they're always the coastal states. And so people pit us against the South. And that's just another division. It's a difficult one to overcome. But then even within that, we have further divisions of states themselves. Oh, it's Oregon against California, or, you know, Idaho against Montana. I mean, these invisible borders that we create, you know, our sports team is better, or, you know, our schools are better. Then from that, it divides from states further down to cities, where we think our city is better than the neighbor city. Communities, where all our community is superior to theirs. Even down to parts of the community. Oh, this little local area is better than that local area. Then it breaks down to blocks and neighborhoods. I live on 1st Street. No, we got a nicer street than 2nd Street. And it breaks down to neighbors, you know. The guy across the street does this or does that. The people down the street are like this, do that. And then it breaks down to families and opinions, you know, maybe teaming up one part of the family against the other, or even further reduced down to one husband pitted against one wife, or parents against their children. And to further break it down, you have your own divided thoughts within your mind, your own divisions of opinion, of ideals, of what you think things should be like, the way that we view the world. Our ideal attitudes are what often cause the divisions. So we've moved from um, us against nature all the way down to us pitted against ourselves. And by taking this list from nation down to state to community all the way down to self, you see the metaphor, the cycle repeated over and over and over. The question still remains, can we ever get past divisions? And the answer in my mind and my heart would be no. Because someone will always have an idea that conflicts with the reality, the consensus of the group around them. There may be 10 people in a room discussing one issue, and one person, or maybe 2 people, team up and say, we don't think this is the way it is, and they challenge it. People are divided in their opinions, so they have to be strong towards what they believe in order to present the evidence. If people were wishy-washy about everything, then we'd never be sure. But there are people that are very dedicated to understanding why things are the way they are. And as far as divisions, I think that instead of trying to sugarcoat the reality of it, maybe we should learn to find out the root cause of the divisions. In other words, racism is a big one. And over the last 50 years, I hear these guys saying racism is over. They're usually radical right-wingers that say, hey, we gave civil rights to the coloreds and now we're all set. There's no more racism. Preposterous notion. What we've done is just pushed it to the back. We're just hiding our racism. I'm going to be, totally brutally honest. No matter how, people talk about how they accept everyone, that they don't judge people. But if you live in a nice part of town and you're walking down the street and you pass 3 white guys in suits at night by an alley, you're not going to think much of it. But most small white people that are walking along and they see a strangely dressed black man coming out of the alley, their instinct kicks in, and they pretend that they're not scared, or that he might not be a criminal. But if he's in a place where you don't often see coloreds or blacks, whatever you want, African Americans, I don't play the name game. Blacks is what I usually say, because whites, blacks, browns, whatever. It's not an issue to me, because I understand that racism is something that we all have a degree of, and it's something that we've been trying to hide. And I don't mean that in a way to say that any race is inferior or superior, but rather to mean that different races have different cultures. So we've tried to integrate people into the societies and say, okay, we can live among anyone we want, but still, people of particular races tend to congregate in areas, Little Chinatown, and unfortunately many of the blacks are forced into the ghettos, so that's not always by choice, but they want to live with, those of their culture, those of their color, and that's an okay thing. There's nothing wrong with that. This is again observed in nature, as we see animals tend to group with themselves and those like them. And I think that the idea is to stop pretending that we can bring everybody together on these issues, because there's no way to do it. I've always had this theory that if Jesus, let's say, descended from the clouds tomorrow, than tackling maybe, rather than trying to force people to integrate and to accept everyone who they are, maybe society could stop being so, you know, pussyfooting around those who are really causing problems, who are really causing division, those who are starting the wars, those who are feeding off our emotional state, the decades, the thousands of years of research that have been done into the human psyche and how we react to events that has been well documented and has been used against us by those in charge. Um, Playing on people's emotions, and the emotions usually teach us from opinion one way or the other. So if you keep a neutral opinion, you just leave it on the side, keep a neutral opinion. So whenever you hear someone say something, you're hearing it from two sides. I try to do this as an independent thinker in politics, for example. I would more likely lean towards being a Democrat than a Republican, but I'm not Democrat. I refuse to be associated with one party and their values. Maybe I might accept more of their values, maybe not, but I'm not going to go back. Nothing more frustrating than, like, let's say 1% of the population thinks they know better than 99%. And I always say, even if you do have it right, even if you are a minority percentage of the world, I don't mean minority in color, but just a minority percentage of the people that believe in something that you say the rest of the world has to see it this way, it's not going to work unless you can show them why and how that's going to better their lives. And that 1% may be the ones who have found truth in themselves. I'm a completely different person mentally than I was even 5 years ago. And I'd love to share that with people and get people to be able to wake up and not stress about their day and to realize that this is it. You're going to be a human. No matter how much you stress, you're not going to change that. You can finish, you can end your life, you can continue your life, but all these choices are in our hands. And by removing the conflict of division in my own life, I'm able to see things much more clearly. It's like clearing away a foggy window. And I guess that's all I've got on that. I just would hope that each person could find it in their heart to say, do I really believe this? Do I really think this is true? And if so, why? How would this benefit humanity? And if so, how would it benefit the world in turn? Most of all, how does this fit in with the natural scheme of things? It cannot be stressed enough to observe nature and reflect that nature in the way that we behave. Those who have lived in harmony with nature have been some of the happiest, most successful people. According to what success really is to me. Not financial gain. Happiness. Contentment. Acceptance. And never happiness at the cost of another group. So that's the thing to remember. We can take care of our own, and that's fine. But we still have a world of others. And we may not be able to help them all. But by eliminating the divisions in our own minds, we can start to eliminate the divisions within all of us. And that's my hope. So, namaste. I'm out.